Hey guys, tonight we're going to gently step back into an era, not to judge, but just to softly observe a world that, on its surface, seemed remarkably placid, a world painted in pastels and powered by politeness. Imagine, if you will, waking up not to the gentle glow of your smartphone, but to the rather assertive clang of an alarm clock the size of a small brick. Outside your window, meticulously manicured lawns stretch as far as the eye can see, punctuated by identical houses with white picket fences. The air smells faintly of brow cream, recently cut grass, and a certain unshakable optimism, or perhaps just a general lack of other options. You're in the 1950s America, a land of booming prosperity and, as we'll soon discover, a fascinating array of subtle, daily experiences. It's quite an interesting thought, really, how adapting to the normal of that time, which might feel almost monotonous to us, would be a rather unique experience. It's a different kind of endurance test, perhaps. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments below. It's always a blast to see where in the world our sleepy history journeys are reaching. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink softly, your eyes adjusting to a light that feels different. It's softer, less clinical than the LED world you're used to. The room you're in is a symphony of chintz and chenille, with heavy drapes that look like they could stop a small caliber bullet. A glance out the window confirms it. You're in suburbia, pure and unfiltered. It's the dawn, not just of a new day, but of what many considered a golden age. The Second World War was a fading, albeit still raw memory, and America was flexing its economic muscles. This was the era of the post-Watu economic boom, a well-documented period of significant prosperity in the United States, leading to the growth of suburbs and a surge in consumer spending. But beneath this veneer of tranquil prosperity, the tedium, as we might perceive it, was a finely tuned machine. And you, my friend, are about to be gently caught in its gears. The first thing you sense is the quiet. It's not a peaceful quiet, it's an enforced quiet. Lawns are mowed with a silent precision. Neighbors nod with a practiced, almost rehearsed politeness. Children, when seen, are often suspiciously clean. This isn't the boisterous, messy, wonderfully chaotic world you know. This is a world meticulously curated, where keeping up appearances isn't just a hobby, it's practically a civic duty. You stretch thinking about your morning routine. Coffee? Sure, but it's probably percolated, a process that takes an eternity and often results in a brew that could strip paint. One popular brand, Maxwell House, had the slogan, "Good to the last drop," which, depending on the pot, could be taken as either a promise or a gentle warning. News? Not on your phone, pal. You'll have to wait for the paperboy, a mythical creature of yore, to hurl a rolled-up cylinder of yesterday's events onto your porch. And if he misses and hits the prize-winning azaleas, well, that's a neighborhood incident requiring hushed tones and perhaps a passive-aggressive note. Historians still gently ponder whether the perceived conformity of the 1950s was a genuine reflection of societal values or a media-constructed ideal pushed by the nascent television industry and advertisers eager to sell a particular lifestyle. It's a fascinating thought, because on one hand, you had this incredible pressure to fit in, to have the perfect family, the perfect house, the perfect Jell-O mold. On the other, the seeds of massive social upheaval, civil rights, feminism, counterculture, were already being sown, albeit quietly. One quirky yet telling tidbit from this era was the brief but intense fad for 3D movies in the early 1950s. Audiences donned those flimsy cardboard glasses to watch films like Buona Devil and House of Wax, a novelty that promised a more immersive experience, much like VR today, only with significantly more eye strain and fewer zombies. While everyone was smiling for the camera and buying new washing machines, there was also this undercurrent of Cold War anxiety, a constant low hum of what if, leading to the aforementioned bomb shelter boom. It's like trying to enjoy a picnic while knowing there's a grumpy bear hiding just behind the nearest tree, a very polite bear, mind you, but a bear nonetheless. Imagine trying to explain your TikTok feed to someone whose idea of cutting-edge entertainment is watching Milton Berle in grainy black and white. They'd probably think you were possessed, or worse, a communist. That was a big one back then. One wrong word about, say, the inherent deliciousness of borscht, or questioning why every salad seems to be encased in lime green gelatin, and you could find yourself explaining your culinary and political preferences to some very serious men in very serious hats. It's the kind of boring that could give you an ulcer before lunchtime. The very air you breathe seems to whisper, conform, conform, or face mild but persistent social ostracization. You want to scream, but you remember Mrs. Henderson next door just had her nerves attended to, and you wouldn't want to cause a relapse, would you? This dawn of tedium is less about overt hardship and more about 1,000 tiny paper cuts to your modern sensibilities, a slow, methodical erosion of your will to live tweetlingly. You're not just in a different time, you're on a different planet, one where the dominant species communicates through perfectly coiffed hair and impeccably timed casserole deliveries. Good luck. The sheer, unadulterated analog nature of the 1950s morning is your next gentle hurdle. You survived the initial shock of the chintz, but now you need to, say, contact another human being who isn't within polite shouting distance. Prepare yourself for the rotary phone. This isn't a sleek slab of glass and metal that connects you to the sum of human knowledge. Oh no, this is a heavy plastic behemoth tethered to the wall by a coiled cord that seems to have a malevolent intelligence, always tangling itself around chair legs or unsuspecting ankles. To dial a number, you don't just tap, you commit. You stick your finger in a hole and rotate the dial, a satisfyingly clunky whir-click-clack accompanying each digit. Making a call to, say, your Aunt Mildred across town, who has a number like KLONDIKE52368, is an exercise in patience and fine motor skills. Misdial, you start all over again, each spin of the dial a tiny monument to your fumbling inadequacy. And long-distance calls, forget about it. That was an event often pre-announced like a minor holiday and costing a small fortune. You'd shout into the receiver, "Is that you, Mildred? It's me. Can you hear me?" As if she were on the moon, which, given the connection quality sometimes, wasn't far from the truth. The idea of a casual chat with someone overseas would be as alien as, well, an actual alien. Then there's the information flow, or rather, the information trickle. You want to look something up? There's no Google, no Wikipedia. Your primary resource is a multi-volume encyclopedia, likely purchased on an installment plan and occupying a significant portion of your living room bookshelf, serving as both fount of knowledge and imposing status symbol. Finding a specific fact involves hauling down a heavy tome, deciphering an index that may or may not be user-friendly, and then hoping the information hasn't become woefully outdated since its 1948 printing. It's a research project, not a quick search. Imagine trying to settle a bar bet about the average migratory speed of an unladen swallow. By the time you found the answer, the bar would be closed and everyone would have forgotten the question. A truly terrifying thought. No instant fact-checking for your uncle's questionable, historical anecdotes at Thanksgiving. And paperwork. Oh, the glorious, infuriating world of pre-digital paperwork. If you need a copy of something, you don't just hit print. You use carbon paper. This thin, inky sheet, placed between two pieces of regular paper, would transfer your typing or handwriting to the sheet below, creating a duplicate. It was messy, prone to smudging, and if you made a typo on the original, you either had to meticulously correct it on both copies with special erasing fluid that smelled vaguely toxic, or start the whole laborious process over. The term CC on emails, that stands for carbon copy, a ghostly reminder of this bygone era of administrative suffering. The widespread use of carbon paper for creating duplicates is a solid historical fact of mid-20th century office life. It was an essential, if often frustrating, tool. Trying to fill out a government form in triplicate with this method, ensuring all copies were legible and smudge-free, was a task that could break even the strongest spirit. You'd end up with blue-tinged fingers and a profound appreciation for the delete key. Historians still consider the true impact of early information overload from print media versus the perceived information scarcity compared to today's digital deluge. Were people better informed by carefully reading one or two newspapers, or simply less distracted? It's a chicken or the egg situation. One quirky tidbit is the existence of telephone sanitizers. Little devices or services that promised to disinfect your telephone receiver, a nod to the germ-conscious and perhaps slightly paranoid sensibilities of the time. Given that multiple family members or office workers would be pressing their faces against the same bakelite surface, maybe it wasn't so quirky after all. You'd probably be tempted to invent hand sanitizer on the spot, only to realize you'd then have to write out the patent application in triplicate using carbon paper, after looking up the chemical compounds in a 20-pound encyclopedia. The thought alone is exhausting. This analog world doesn't just slow you down, it actively conspires to make simple tasks feel like Herculean efforts. You want to order a pizza? Good luck finding a number in the phone book the size of a small child, then hoping they deliver, then paying in cash because credit cards are still a novelty. It's enough to make you want to just eat the doilies. Now that you've wrestled with the phone and narrowly avoided an inky disaster with carbon paper, it's time to consider getting dressed. And in the 1950s, getting dressed wasn't a casual affair of throwing on jeans and a t-shirt. Oh no, my friend, you're entering the realm of constricting couture, where undergarments had the structural integrity of a small suspension bridge, and societal expectations were ironed into every crease. For women, the day often began with a formidable piece of engineering known as the girdle. This wasn't a gentle shaping garment. This was a full-blown, non-negotiable foundation garment designed to sculpt the female form into the fashionable hourglass silhouette. Whether your natural form agreed or not, made of stiff fabrics, elastic panels, and often reinforced with boning, actual strips of metal or plastic, just like in old-school corsets. Girdles were, to put it mildly, restrictive. Breathing deeply, a luxury. Bending over to pick something up, a calculated risk. They were hot, they were tight, and they were ubiquitous. The daily wear of girdles by many women in the 1950s is a widely acknowledged aspect of fashion history, reflecting the era's silhouette ideals. Many also wore garter belts to hold up nylon stockings, as pantyhose as we know them weren't widely available until the 1960s. So that's another layer of strapping and hardware to contend with before you've even had your percolated coffee. For men, things weren't exactly a walk in the park either, though perhaps slightly less structurally demanding. The uniform for many was a suit and tie, even for activities that today would barely warrant putting on pants. Think starched collars that chafed your neck, wool suits that were less than ideal in summer, and hats, fedoras, trilbies, Homburgs, which were considered an essential part of a man's outdoor attire. Going hatless was a bit like going shoeless today, just not quite done. And the fabrics, lots of wool, rayon, and early synthetic that didn't always breathe well, and dacron, a miracle polyester fiber that promised wrinkle resistance, but often delivered a rather unfortunate sheen and a tendency to retain odors. Imagine a hot summer day, no air conditioning in your car, or even many offices, and you're sweltering in a wool suit and a hat. Your shirt, a crisp white one of course, would be sticking to you, the starched collar feeling like a tiny personal guillotine. The sheer effort of maintaining this level of sartorial propriety would be exhausting before you even left the house. The dress codes were often unwritten, but rigidly enforced by societal judgment. Going to the grocery store, a house dress for her, slacks and a collared shirt for him. Evening out, a cocktail dress, gloves, and perhaps a small decorative hat for her, a darker suit and tie for him. Even children were often dressed in miniature versions of adult clothing, looking like tiny, slightly bewildered business executives or debutantes. Historians still reflect on the extent to which these strict dress codes suppressed individuality versus providing a sense of social cohesion and order. Was it a comforting uniformity or a stifling conformity? Perhaps a bit of both. One quirky fashion trend from the era was the poodle skirt for teenage girls, a wide felt skirt often decorated with an applique of a poodle on a leash. It's an iconic image, but imagine the logistics of actually wearing and cleaning a heavy felt skirt, especially one with a very specific, potentially high-maintenance, canine embellishment. One wrong move at the sock hop and Fifi gets a soda stain, and heaven forbid you try to express your 21st century fashion sense. Ripped jeans? You'd be mistaken for a vagrant or, at best, someone who had a very unfortunate accident with a lawnmower. Athleisure wear outside of actual athletic activity? Unthinkable. Your Lululemons would cause a minor scandal at the Piggly Wiggly. The pressure to look put together at all times was immense. It wasn't just about looking nice. It was about reflecting your social standing, your respectability, your adherence to the unspoken rules of the era. You'd spend half your morning just getting into the appropriate attire, feeling like you're preparing for a state dinner rather than a trip to the hardware store. And the constant low-level discomfort, the girdle digging in, the collar chafing, the non-breathable fabrics, would be a persistent reminder that you are not in Kansas or your comfy joggers anymore. You'd probably long for the sweet, sweet freedom of an elastic waistband like a desert wanderer craves water. Right. You've navigated the sartorial labyrinth and emerged starched and girdled into the bright 1950s morning. What's next on the agenda? Sustenance. But prepare your palate because you're about to enter the often bewildering, occasionally surprising world of 1950s cuisine. This was an era of transition, the rise of processed foods, the convenience of canning, and a certain adventurousness with gelatin that modern stomachs might find, shall we say, intriguing. Forget your artisanal sourdough and organic kale salads. You're now in the land of canned mystery meats, gravity-defying Jell-O creations, and a reverence for anything that could be mixed with mayonnaise and served on a lettuce leaf. One of the stars of the 1950s pantry was Spam, or similar canned processed luncheon meats, which became a household staple due to its long shelf life and affordability, a legacy of wartime rationing. It could be fried, baked, sliced, diced, and incorporated into an alarming variety of dishes. Spam and eggs for breakfast? A distinct possibility. Spam sandwiches for lunch? Almost a certainty. Spam and pineapple skewers for a fancy dinner party? Don't rule it out. Then there's the Jell-O. Oh, the glorious, wobbly, multi-hued Jell-O. It wasn't just a dessert, it was a culinary canvas. Homemakers armed with glossy magazine recipes suspended all manner of things in shimmering, translucent molds. Sweet Jell-O salads might feature fruit cocktail, canned of course, marshmallows and perhaps a dollop of whipped cream, or Dream Whip, a powdered topping. But the true test of your modern fortitude would be these savory Jell-O concoctions. Imagine lime Jell-O encasing shredded carrots, celery, and perhaps some olives. Or a tomato aspic, a savory tomato-flavored gelatin, sometimes with bits of seafood or vegetables suspended within. These were often served as salads or appetizers, wobbling precariously on a bed of iceberg lettuce. You might find yourself politely declining a perfection salad, lemon Jell-O with cabbage, celery, pimento, and green olives, while trying not to make a face that would offend your hostess, who spent hours meticulously crafting the jiggly masterpiece. It's a culinary landscape where a tuna wiggle, tuna, peas, and noodles in a white sauce, often served on toast, was considered comfort food. Pre-microwave meal prep was an art form, or at least a time-consuming necessity. TV dinners, first introduced by Swanson in 1953, were a revolutionary concept, a complete meal in a segmented aluminum tray that could be heated in the oven. They were the height of convenience, but the quality could be variable. Think Salisbury steak with a slightly metallic tang, gluey mashed potatoes, and peas that had seen better days. But hey, you could eat it on a tray while watching one of your 3 television channels. Cooking from scratch was still common, but heavily reliant on canned and processed ingredients. Casseroles were king, often involving a can of cream of mushroom soup, the culinary duct tape of the era. Some form of protein, canned tuna, leftover chicken, and a crunchy topping, canned fried onions, crushed potato chips. Historians continue to discuss whether the rise of convenience foods in the 1950s truly liberated women from kitchen drudgery or simply shifted the nature of their culinary labor towards assembling processed components. Did it save time or just alter nutritional standards? One quirky culinary tidbit is the sheer number of recipes featuring marshmallows in unexpected places, not just in desserts. Sweet potatoes were frequently topped with them, of course, but you might also find them in fruit salads or even mixed into some Jell-O fluff concoctions. It seems the 50s had a sweet tooth and a penchant for textural surprises. Trying to maintain a healthy, balanced diet by today's standards would be a significant challenge. Fresh vegetables might be overcooked to within an inch of their lives. Exotic ingredients were hard to come by, and the concept of light or low fat was largely alien. Butter, cream, and sugar were used with a joyful abandon that would make a modern cardiologist weep. You'd find yourself craving a simple, unadorned piece of grilled chicken in a fresh green salad, only to be presented with chicken a la king and a congealed salad that stares back at you with 1,000 tiny, suspended pineapple chunks. It's enough to make you consider fasting. If only you could find a quiet corner where no one would try to tempt you with a deviled egg. And so, the experiences of a 1950s morning gently fade from your mind. The rotary phone falls silent, the restrictive clothing loosens, and the rather unusual foods recede into the distance. Let those images become just soft, distant ripples. Feel the ease of no longer needing to navigate the strict rules or the inconveniences of a time gone by. Now there is only the quiet of your room, the softness of your bed. Allow your breath to deepen and slow. Any worries, any thoughts of things past, just let them drift away like clouds in the night sky. All that remains is peace and complete relaxation, sinking now into a deep, restful sleep. Sweet dreams.